How do you feel about the fact that you will have to die one day? Story 1, I don't think I mind so much about the death part, but I have serious FOMO. I'm very curious to see how the world pans out, but I won't be able to after death. And that's not fair. A character in a Lee Child novel compares it to watching a motion picture in a theater. You understand you will have to leave before the movie ends, but you'll miss seeing how things turn out. Time is like the motion picture. We humans will die before time runs out. Therefore will, in literary terms, have to leave the motion picture and would never get to see how things resolve, evolve, unfold, etc. Stealing a better explanation from Watertor. It's not a direct one-to-one, it's the idea that you get up and leave halfway through a movie. You know there's more to the movie and would like to see it continue, but you have to get up and leave anyway. It's to represent the feeling of missing out after life continues on without you. Story 2. I have stage 4 cancer and my doctor has told me that this means there is no possible way that I won't die from this. Unless I get hit by a bus or something. In the meantime, of course. It was a really hard thing to wrap my head around, and so far I feel okay. But it's in my bones, and as that progresses, it will become very painful. It was super painful at first, but the meds have gotten that under control for now. Everything I've learned about the final stages of cancer scare me more than death. I hope it won't be as bad, but I will find out soon enough, I suppose. Story 3. Well, when I die, it won't be my problem anymore. Nothing will be. This is my exact response. I even have my boss saying it every Friday like clockwork. Me. See you guys Monday, or I'll die. Then good luck figuring out what I do. My boss. Guess it won't really be your problem anymore. Story 4. Not great. I know there's nothing we can do to change it, but someone close to me is on their way out, and it's been making me think about death a lot. I'm not afraid of very much in this world, I can't lie. But death, just not knowing what comes after, I don't know, man. Been having a lot of panic attacks about it. 2 options. Either there is life after or there isn't. I'd rather live life to the fullest thinking there's nothing after and be surprised instead of hoping for heaven and nothing happening. Story 5, I feared death, but now I'm coming to terms with it since I might die sooner than I wanted. 24 days ago, I was diagnosed with leukemia. At first, we thought it was a type that had a good outcome, but when the bone marrow biopsy came back, turns out I have a rare form called MPAL. 1.3% of leukemia patients get this, and it's harder to treat, and the outcome is not great. I'm now forced to think about my death. I'm forced to put my affairs in order. I'm forced to make sure my family will be okay if I can't beat this thing. I'm forced to face death. I don't want to die, I'm only 33, but I might, and that fucking sucks. I realize when if I die, I'm gone. But I'm leaving a lot of people behind who will have to deal with grief. I don't like thinking about the pain my death will cause others. I had a rare form of leukemia when I was 12 and it relapsed when I was 17. Stem cell transplants both times in both hips and an ankle replacement due to necrosis of the joints. After being told it was less than 15% survival rate and lower than 3-second time, I also came to terms with it fairly quickly. I'll be turning 28 this year and it has been a very weird 10 years. Full of gratitude for my family and the doctors that saved my life and helped me keep walking, to the employers who have helped me work when I thought I'd never be able to, all the way to survivor's guilt for feeling like I should be doing so much more, and the feeling of wishing I could trade my place in the world for just one of the kids that didn't make it. Unfortunately, we don't get the freedom to choose who lives and who doesn't, and how long we're allowed to stay with what circumstances. With or without cancer, any of those days we lived could have well been our last. And death is the only thing we are actually guaranteed in life. The pain that it causes is a testament of our love for who we lost. And I wouldn't want to live in a world without that pain if that makes sense. Every day I live feels like a bonus day, and sometimes they're filled with happiness, and other days it's grief. But one of those days will eventually be my last. As will anyone else reading this have the same. Whether or not my last day comes before yours, I'll see you on the dark side of the moon, Godspeed. Story 6. At an earlier stage in my life, I was fine with it. Now that I've recently gotten my first kid, I realize I think about death in practical terms more often than ever, and I attribute it solely to fear of letting my boy grow up without someone who loves him unconditionally. Passing 30, I thought the attachment to my mother would wane. But I realize I still value her love and validation far above anyone else. Looking into the future, I have to be ready to give that to my son past 30 as well. So guess I'm in for the long haul now. Story 7, I stopped being afraid of death once my kitty was put to sleep. He was so brave. If he can do it, I can do it. But now I'm more afraid of grief. Life is a long time to go missing someone. Story 8, I feel uneasy. It makes me realize how attached I've become to certain things. But the idea of what happens after death has always intrigued me. It's like I want to know what happens after death. But I don't want to die yet because there's so much in life that I haven't explored. I wish to live my life exploring things and when the time comes, gradually accept death. Story 9. We're going to die. And that makes us the lucky ones. Most people are never going to die because they are never going to be born. The potential people who could have been here in my place but who will in fact never see the light of day outnumber the sand grains of Arabia. Certainly those unborn ghosts include greater poets than Keats, scientists greater than Newton. We know this because the set of possible people allowed by our DNA so massively exceeds the set of actual people. In the teeth of these stupefying odds, it is you and I in our ordinariness that are here. We privileged few who won the lottery of birth against all odds. How dare we whine at our inevitable return to that prior state from which the vast majority have never stirred. Richard Dawkins, Story 10. I'm more interested in the idea that it could be tomorrow, for all I know. Makes it all the more important to live your best life while you can. Story 11. I'm trying to put it off as long as possible. I'm 66 and want to make it to 120. My health is great and I'm very active, so unless a meteorite or out-of-control bus takes me out, I think I have a good chance. But I really want to stick around and watch my grandkids grow up. The oldest just joined the Air Force like I did, and it is exciting as hell to talk to him as he goes his own way. I think life is just too fun to have it cut short. I still have lots of stuff to do. Story 12. Awesome. Seriously. Had a DMT experience, and if not just cured me of my fear, it's actually got me excited to return home. Not that I'm in any rush for it or anything. Life is now a bit like when you're at a restaurant with good friends waiting on a meal. It's great now. It'll be great when the food comes. Psychedelics in the right headspace will absolutely clear your fear of death. It almost lets you pierce the veil and understand that it all still continues on, and whether living or not, you were, and still are, a part of it. Living or dead, it's all here already. Hard to put into words, almost like getting a surprise phone call that you have the day off tomorrow. It's almost relieving to think about it now. Story 13. The fear of death is based on the incorrect assumption that you are a single, continuous being that came into existence when you were born and will stop existing when you die. I exist, sure, but is the me that exists today the same me that exists tomorrow? If I lose my memories, did I die? Is someone else in my body now? When you really examine it, life and death are a little fuzzy around the edges. Existence and non-existence are subjective, especially when it comes to consciousness. When you're no longer convinced of your own existence, you stop being attached to it and you can just be without fear of the inevitable. Story 14. As long as it's not anytime soon, as long as it's peaceful and by natural causes, and as long as I don't outlive everyone I love beforehand, I don't care. Way I see it, I'm 22. 30 years sounds like a really long time. But in 30 years, I'll be 52. And as long as I take care of myself, I'll still be in really good shape and healthy at that point. And if I continue to take really good care of myself and stay healthy, I could have another 30 years after that. At the end of the day, I likely won't see my death coming. But I can do everything in my power to be careful and stay healthy enough to live as long and fulfilling a life as possible. If I'm gonna just go to sleep one night and just not wake up the next morning someday in my 80s, that sounds fine to me. No pain, no fear, never would have known it was even going to happen. I got too long left and too much else going on to even worry about dying someday. And if by some chance I'm going to die in some unfortunate accident or something before my time, God forbid, there's literally no way for me. Story 14. As long as it's not anytime soon, as long as it's peaceful and by natural causes, and as long as I don't outlive everyone I love beforehand, I don't care. Way I see it, I'm 22. 30 years sounds like a really long time. But in 30 years, I'll be 52. And as long as I take care of myself, I'll still be in really good shape and healthy at that point. And if I continue to take really good care of myself and stay healthy, I could have another 30 years after that. At the end of the day, I likely won't see my death coming, but I can do everything in my power to be careful and stay healthy enough to live as long and fulfilling a life as possible. If I'm going to just go to sleep one night and just not wake up the next morning someday in my 80s, that sounds fine to me. No pain, no fear. Never would have known it was even going to happen. I got too long left and too much else going on to even worry about dying someday. And if by some chance I'm going to die in some unfortunate accident or something before my time, God forbid, there's literally no way for me to know right now. But I can be as careful as possible to avoid that. I can't do that for other people, however, so I'm a lot more concerned with living longer than people I care about. If you were to tell me that I'm for sure 100% going to die at 95, I'd be fine with that. But if you were to also tell me that by 75, 20 years before I die, I will have already outlived all my friends, my parents, my brother, etc. That's a little less okay to me. Story 15. I've crossed the statistical halfway point. I've been to enough funerals now that I've accepted the inevitability. I'm having a harder time accepting that my parents are on the short list. My wife and I have been together for nearly 2-3 of our lives now. I'm worried for both of us living without the other. I feel the occasional sting from things I used to do with pets that have passed, and can only image it being so much worse with the loss of a partner. Story 16. I was okay with it until last year when I was diagnosed with a stage 3 cancer at age 36. I'm currently doing well following treatment, but it's made me realize I definitely do not wish to die for a very long time, but I'm utterly powerless over it. I've made a will. I've started writing memories down for my children just in case, and I've spent a lot of time thinking about the fear that's now in me. I have no strong feelings on what is after. It may be nothing, and then I won't care, will I? But it may be something. Another dimension, reincarnation, or my favorite, the Terry Pratchett. It'll be whatever you think it'll be one. I am choosing to believe there is something because honestly it makes it easier and more pleasant than the abyss. Story 17. Scared, honestly it scares me. But one thought that gives me peace, as a Christian. I came from somewhere, and it doesn't stand to reason that I'm not going somewhere upon dying, even from a non-theological standpoint. It's astounding we are here to begin with. Absolutely incredible. Story 18. This is how I comfort myself as well. I go back and forth on Christianity because I was raised Christian, but I think it isn't outrageous to conclude that there probably is a creating force that is beyond us. Story 19. I'm not necessarily convinced it's even possible to die in the way many think of it. How do we really know that consciousness won't just persist in a different form or experience? But for argument's sake, let's assume it doesn't. I've had surgeries where I was under general anesthesia. During that time, while under, there was no perception of time, no thought, no dreaming, just instantly time traveling from the beginning to instantly waking back up with nothing in between. Makes me think that true death would by definition be like that. You won't be there to experience it, so why worry about it? Story 20. Memento mori. Reflect on it daily. It can have a big impact on the decisions you will make. Is yelling at the person who cut you off that big a deal? Is holding the decade-long grudge against a family member, loved one friend worth it? Is slaving away at the same dead-end job gonna get you anywhere? Do what needs to done today. Story 21. I'm the same. It's odd how alike you and I think. Ever since I was 10, I have thought about how my parents are going to die, and eventually I'll have no one and nothing, and that I will die. I remember being 10, looking at my dad and thinking, WTF am I going to do when he's gone? I'm 30 now, and it's the same. I think about it daily. I kind of ruins my days. I worry about my close ones dying, and I'm scared of when my time will come as a 30-something who has already lost both parents. I'll tell you a few things. It will be the most difficult thing you will ever experience, but you'll be fine. You eventually reach a place when you'll accept that they are gone, that it's just how life operates. You'll never stop missing them, of course, but it gets easier day by day. Make the time you have with your folks now count. Spend as much time as you can. Tell them how much they mean to you. Make a ton of memories now. You don't know how much time you have left for that, and you want no regrets. Trust me on that. Basically, accept that you cannot stop the inevitable, but you can make the time now mean something. Story 22. I have an existential crisis a couple times a month where I have to cope with the fact I'm getting old, yet still feel like I'm not grown up. And the fact that I'm getting old means eventually I'm going to have to die, and that's not going to be a pleasant experience. Even if somehow we figure out how to transfer our consciousness, would living forever be worse than dying? Am I going to realize I'm dying? What's it like to know that you're about to kick it? Do I go out screaming and crying? Do I just ask to be sedated through it? Is there an afterlife? What if I wasn't a good enough person? Who is going to miss me? I didn't have kids. Should I have had kids? How long until I'm completely forgotten? What will my pets think? It's 4 a.m. I have to be up for work soon. Story 23. The idea of someday just ceasing to exist makes me spiral emotionally. I hope I'm old and peaceful when I do go. I'm a 38-year-old single mom of 2. I lost my dad to cancer 11 years ago, and still have days that my heart aches from the loss of his presence. Death isn't just a scary concept for me, but knowing that my children will someday experience this pain is overwhelming to me. Story 24. I had bad vision growing up as a kid and couldn't do a lot, but I always wanted to work for the railroad. But I've pushed through and done most of all I've wanted to. I had an engineer's license to run locomotives. I've worked as a brakeman on the ground cutting and building trains. Found out tourist railroads and Class 3 short lines have less strict requirements. At 18, I joined the volunteer fire department and have found a love working in healthcare. When my day comes, I have no regrets. I've lived a hell of a life so far at 26. Every day is another adventure, and the book has to end sometime. Never turn down an offer to try something new. Story 25. I try to think dying is as natural as birth, and it'll become part of the cosmos forever. We are so lucky to experience life, and although death is a terrible thought at times to me, well, might as well enjoy it. Also, what helps is to think every living thing is in the same boat. Except sea turtles. They have ages to sort their shit out. Hope this helps a bit even. Story 26. Nothing's ever lost, and the fact that nobody comes back means one of two things. Either it's so freaking awesome on the other side, and so brilliant that we don't have to come back, nor want to. On the other side of the 50-50 it ends. We're done, it's going to sleep the last time. Those are better odds, and I pretty much had my whole life at anything. It's an odd kind of logic, but it works for me.